What's up, YouTube? Jeff, your Style O.G. And on today's video, I'm going to share with you my best tips on how to be emotionally intelligent. If you're new to the channel, we release a new video every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, discussing various men's lifestyle topics such as style, grooming, and dating. I invite you to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and join us. And to my returning friends like Sean Smith, salute. Now, most of us, when we think of intelligence, we think of book smarts. You know, going to school, acquiring knowledge. However, there's another type of intelligence that's just as important: emotional intelligence. Now, for those who don't know, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, interpret, and process emotions, both in yourself and in others. I'm a firm believer that emotional intelligence is very important for you to develop, and that's what I want to help you with on today's video. On today's video, I'm going to share with you some great tips how you can develop your emotional intelligence and better handle and process emotions in yourself and when interacting with others. So without any further delay, let's hop right into it. One of the most important things you can do to develop your emotional intelligence is to try to become more self-aware. Do some self-analysis. Pay attention to your strengths and your weaknesses and how you usually respond in different situations. Figure out what your emotional triggers are. Think about how you responded to these emotional triggers and how you can respond differently the next time they happen. The more you know yourself and how you usually respond, the easier it'll be for you to respond better the next time instinctively. It's very important to take an honest assessment of yourself. The more you have control and knowledge of yourself and your emotions, you'll be better able to understand other people's emotions and how they may respond. Self-awareness is very important to develop your emotional intelligence. Focus on your strengths and your weaknesses, how you usually respond to situations, and how you like to respond in the future. Now, developing your self-awareness leads to the ability to develop another skill when it comes to emotional intelligence. I'm talking about the ability to self-regulate. What is that? That's the ability to process and experience an emotion, but not be controlled by it. Someone who self-regulates is able to respond, not react. What's the difference? Someone who responds experiences an emotion, but is able to think before they act. On the other hand, someone who lacks impulse control is a reactor. He has an emotion and he's on go mode. The more you know yourself and are able to self-regulate, you're less likely to have emotional outbursts. When something happens to you, yes, you respond, but you don't fly off the handle. You don't lose control. Remember, all of us are going to experience very similar emotions. It's about how you respond to them. Respond, don't react. Develop the ability to self-regulate. Speaking of being in control, many of us try to eat right and control what we put into our bodies. But despite how great we eat, a lot of us don't get all the nutrients we need from the food we consume. We're left with nutritional gaps. That's where today's video sponsor, Ritual, comes in. Ritual is an obsessively researched multivitamin that was designed to fill the nutritional gaps in men's diets. Did you know that 70% of men don't get enough vitamin E and 97% of men don't get enough vitamin D from their diet? Ritual Essentials contains 10 high-quality nutrients that are difficult to get every day, even with a healthy diet. Ritual is a new type of 2-a-day. It's a multivitamin that supports a healthy heart, normal muscle, and normal immune function. It's a tiny step that can have a big impact. I've personally been taking Ritual Essentials for about 1.5 years. And one of the things I really love about Ritual, all their ingredients are traceable. That's because what's in your multivitamin is just as important as what it's for. Ritual Essentials multivitamins are vegan-friendly, gluten-free, major allergen-free, and non-GMO. On top of that, Ritual is a subscription-based supplement, making it easy to both start and snooze. Now, not only did Ritual Essentials sponsor today's video, they've got a special offer for the Style O.G family. All you have to do is go to ritual.com/StyleOG and at checkout enter discount code StyleOG20. You'll get 20% off your first month of Ritual Essentials. I highly recommend you hit that link in the description and do what I do. Fill in the nutritional gaps that are left even with some of the most healthy diets. Get started with Ritual Essentials. Now, a little earlier, we talked about responding versus reacting. That brings me to the next skill you need to develop to become more emotionally intelligent. You need to learn to be assertive rather than aggressive. You see, the thing is, an emotionally intelligent person doesn't run from conflict. They're not a pushover. They just handle conflict differently. They assert themselves rather than be overly aggressive. What's the difference? The assertive guy stands up for himself and makes his point, but doesn't do it in a way at the expense of other people or their emotions. Because the assertive, emotionally intelligent guy, even when it comes to conflict, has a different goal than the aggressive guy. The emotionally intelligent guy wants to resolve conflict to get understanding. The aggressive guy just needs to be right. Remember, emotional intelligence has to do with interpreting, processing, and responding to emotions, both yours and others. When you stand up for yourself and resolve conflict with assertion rather than aggression, you aren't burning everything to the ground. Being assertive rather than aggressive leads into the next tip to become more emotionally intelligent. You have to work on your social skills. An emotionally intelligent person has the ability to communicate with other people, both verbally and non-verbally. You need to work on your ability to communicate with others. Be able to talk to other people, be approachable, but also pay attention to non-verbal cues. Be able to read the room. An emotionally intelligent person welcomes people in. They're approachable. They know how to interact with other people in an appropriate way, depending on the person and the circumstance. Remember, being emotionally intelligent isn't just responding to your own emotions appropriately. It has to do with other people's emotions as well. You're better able to do that when you develop your social skills. Speaking of developing social skills, we're going to talk about one of the most important ones when it comes to emotional intelligence. You want to practice active listening. You see, an emotionally intelligent person, when they're having a conversation, they listen to understand, not to reply. The person who lacks emotional intelligence can't wait to get their point across. They really aren't listening. Remember, a conversation is an exchange. Just as important as it is to you to get your point across, so as it is to the other person. The thing you want to work on is hearing and understanding the other person. What I recommend you do is listen to the other person and take a second or two before you even speak, especially when you're in a conflict. The more you take your time and listen, you're better able to process what that person says, and you're much more likely to come to a resolution. But if you both are over talking each other, not having emotional intelligence, nobody's understanding the other person. Nothing gets solved. Being an active listener helps you develop this next skill. An emotionally intelligent person is able to take constructive criticism. This harkens back to one of our first tips, being self-aware. A self-aware person knows the only perspective that matters isn't just theirs. You can get a more wide-ranging awareness of yourself by looking at it from other people's lenses, especially if it's a person you respect. An outside, third-party, objective point of view helps you develop, helps you grow, helps you become a better man. An emotionally intelligent person realizes his isn't the only perspective, and he definitely knows his perspective isn't the only right perspective. And here's the thing, it becomes an exchange. When you can see other people's point of view, it's much more easy for them to see your point of view. Now, next up, we're going to talk about one of the most important attributes when it comes to being emotionally intelligent. It's the ability to be empathetic. What's empathy? Empathy is the ability to sense, relate to, and understand other people's emotions. It's the ability to see yourself in somebody else's shoes. But it's also the ability to understand why somebody feels how they feel, but better yet, understand why they responded the way they responded. When you have empathy for other people, it allows you to understand them, build bonds and connections. And when you see that they need help, you're much better able to sympathize and offer help. Remember, emotional intelligence involves understanding and processing your emotions and other people's as well. One of the most important ways to do this is to empathize. Work on sensing, relating to, and understanding other people's emotions. Now, as you develop your emotional intelligence, you might notice a couple of things. You're more resilient and you're better able to stay motivated. That's because an emotionally intelligent person processes and lives through his emotions, but he doesn't succumb to them. He's not controlled by them. Whereas on the other hand, someone who doesn't have it, they tend to panic at times of crisis. They either overreact or even sometimes they might become paralyzed by their emotions. Whereas the emotionally intelligent person learns how to process the emotions and respond in a calm and rational manner. They don't let obstacles or setbacks get in their way. Despite any setbacks, they're able to keep moving, stay motivated. An emotionally intelligent person doesn't wallow in his misery. They recognize and acknowledge whatever situation they're in, but they are solution-based. The more you learn yourself, the more emotionally intelligent you become, you'll start to notice you're more resilient and more motivated. Now, one of the things you'll often notice about people who have emotional intelligence, they have the ability to take self-accountability. You see, a lot of emotional intelligence has to do with control. A person who takes accountability realizes he's in control of what happens to his life, but more importantly, how he responds to what happens in his life. Whereas on the other hand, someone who lacks emotional intelligence, they blame the world and everybody else for what happens to them. They feel like they have little to no control in what happens in their life. So if they have no control of what happens, of course, they lack control on how they respond to it. As on the other hand, a person who takes self-accountability, looks in the mirror and realizes the buck stops with them. Taking self-accountability puts you in control, both of your life and your emotions. Now, one of the traits you'll often see emotionally intelligent people have in common, they're open to the possibility they might be wrong. You see, emotionally unintelligent people tend to be know-it-all. Being right all the time and your counterparts always being wrong can be very frustrating. It makes you feel you have a lack of control of being able to convince the other person you're right. It's very frustrating, but it also will show up in lacking some of the traits we talked about earlier. Being empathetic, being able to be an active listener. If you think you're always right, you just want to convince the person you're right. Being emotionally intelligent has to do with processing, yes, your emotions, but other people's as well. Being open to the possibility you might be wrong enables you to listen better. The smarter a person is, the more they realize they don't know everything. An emotionally intelligent person is open to the possibility they might be wrong. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, emotional intelligence is just as important as traditional intelligence. It's something we all need to consistently keep working on throughout our life. And I believe if you pay attention to the tips I shared with you in today's video, you'll be well on your way to becoming more emotionally intelligent. Now, as always, I love to have your input. Let the Style O.G family know in the comment section ways you believe they can better develop their emotional intelligence.